Good afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up, a Tuesday edition of Middays with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quiñones. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up as we are getting ready to close out the month of July, the 29th, 2025. As I mentioned, 2 hours to play with. Get social with us. Very easy to do. You can follow along at TriX57. Also, my YouTube channel, X, and IG at Rich Q on Q. Keep the subscriptions coming. You guys have been fantastic on the YouTube channel and the growth over the last several months. Another 136 subs. So you guys are fantastic. You'll see right there how to get social with us as well. We are on the TriX57 Facebook page, TriX57.com. And of course, IG and X at Rich Q on Q. TikTok, Rich Q. On the mic on this very hot and nasty Tuesday up and down the East Coast, just flat out, just brutal, man. I mean, this is when you start to really get in, as we like to say, those dog days of summer. So we are definitely going to get into some baseball, some trade rumors. I've got some thoughts too on this Emmanuel Clase situation with the sports betting, the gambling. I know some people have reached out to me. They also wanted to get my opinion and thoughts on the fact that others have invested in his career, and we'll talk a little more about that. Lloyd Vance is going to join us at 5:05 in his weekly spot. We're going to actually take a look at, I guess you can say, sleepers and hidden gems when it comes to some of these NFL projections. When we're talking about stats, projections, storylines, I've got a couple players that I want to go over with you guys and Lloyd in the 5 o'clock hour that I think you have an opportunity to maybe be profitable with them. And oh, by the way, how about last night? I gave you the exact reason I said take the Rockies over the Guardians last night at plus 165. So if you listen to the Q Effect at 550, you guys made out pretty well. 2-1, 1-1 in the WNBA play. So we'll get into that as well. But I mentioned this whole Emmanuel Clase situation. And what's really interesting is that, and we'll get into some of these trade rumors too in baseball, because I will throw this out there. There also seems to be this rumor sentiment that the Phillies would be willing to trade one of their major cogs, one of their major pieces. We'll talk about that in about 10 minutes or so. But as far as this gambling situation and in baseball, so there was, and like I said, a couple guys have asked me to maybe touch on this. So we know that Clase is under investigation for baseball betting, right? So you're talking about 350,000 for fans out there who bet on him. He is a star attraction at, I guess you pronounce it, Finlet. It's a company out west in San Diego that in essence offers fans the chance to invest in an athlete. So think of the athlete as a stock. I can invest in this athlete in exchange for a share of future earnings. So obviously, the better he plays, his stock goes up, more opportunities to make money, because why? He might sign a monster deal, right? And we know in baseball, some of these contracts are absurd. Now, you can argue that he's probably been the best closer over the last 3, 4, 5 years in baseball. But now, because of the situation coming down where MLB, the league is calling a sports betting investigation, the sport in question is baseball. Now, what happens with everyone's potential money that invested in him, that wanted a little equity, right? That on good faith decided we are going to invest in this player, hoping that he does really well and we can get an ROI. We can get some type of return on our investment. Now, I know the company came out and they mentioned that his contract extends through 2026. They guarantee him at least $13.3 million if the Guardians decline a 2027 buyout. So right now, Cleveland holds an option for $10 million in 2027, another $10 million in 2028. So he would be eligible for free agency if the Guardians decline either option or after the option years have been exercised. Okay, fine. If the league decides that he bet, or if the league determines via their investigation he bet on any baseball games in which his team participated, he would be declared permanently ineligible. If the league determined he had bet on any other baseball games, he potentially could be banned for a year. Now, the company on Instagram mentioned that it raised more than $350,000 from hundreds of investors in his, quote, career. And the co-founder said Monday that 282 investors had participated and that an August dividend would be paid as scheduled. So under the agreement with this company, Class A has received more than $237,000 and owes the company nearly 0.29% of his MLB salary. Now, to me, I think anytime you start to play this dicey game where you're investing in an athlete, it gets a little troublesome because we're talking about regulations, right? And I'm telling you right now, I would say this: if you are a person that invested in this company, then I would say be very, very careful because you're playing this dicey game. Now, are there platforms that athletes have invested in? Yes. Are there platforms that athletes own? Yes, absolutely. I was checking out this site today, and you can buy a stake in future earnings of a real athlete and share in their journey, both emotionally and financially. They have all these written articles and, how it works. We're ushering a new era of athletes and fans. Some of the players they have right now, these guys are still in AAA, right? Some of them are in AA, some are in single A. Like, for instance, Class A is closed. Echeverry Vargas is closed. He's with the Marlins single A right now. All I would say is this. You really need to know where your money is going through, and the devil's always in the details. And I never trust something like this because if it's not regulated and now you've got a situation like this, who's to say your money's not coming back? Who's to say your money's not? So, like, for instance, I know that this owner told Sportico last year, Mariano Rivera was the best ever. And this guy's in that conversation. He's got a full career in front of him. How the hell did we land this deal? It's incredible. So basically, they brokerage out, they placate, they appeal to, they reel them in, and they basically, we're helping raise funds and we're giving you equity. That's really what it is at the end of the day. So they spell out their offering, right? So now if a player signs a lucrative contract or hits free agency or strikes gold, there's a profitability. But everything is dependent on the player hitting that lucrative extension, that lucrative deal, free agency, right? I mean, they can still have a great year and then tear up their knee walking down the steps in the offseason and their career's over and you get zilch, you get nothing. This is why I think the risk of reward, you got to really be very careful here. I also think this is not a controlled environment. They tell you, like anything else, like with stocks, it's a form of gambling. It's a form of betting. Stock's going to go up. Stock can go lower. You buy low, you sell high. We all know the deal, right? So the owner of this company said that the investigation is an unfortunate development. But again, they're not going to, deviate from their business plan. And I'm telling you, it's a red flag. It really is, especially when you've got two players now, two pitchers from the Guardians, and you've got this pitcher, a high caliber pitcher, a high caliber reliever. And this is the problem when you get into being able to gamble in real time and actually micro betting, where you can basically bet on the next pitch, right? So I would monitor this company going forward. I really would, because it always alarms me. Like, there are platforms that eventually will be athlete owned where they're creating content. And I think there's a difference in that. You're creating your content, so it's most likely going to be behind the paywall, in front of the paywall. If it's behind the paywall, you got to pay for it, obviously. If it's in front of the paywall, I'm giving you free content. So let's just say Middays with Q or Back Your Play or, any other shows that I have coming up or any type of form of rebranding. Let's just say right now it's viable to you on my YouTube channel, right? We'll take the other platforms out of the equation. So now I'm offering you the free content. Great. But let's say for the NFL season, when we start to rev up Back Your Play, my sports and gambling pod, now all of a sudden I want to make that available to you. But that is content that I created that I feel has value to it. So I put it behind the paywall. I'm asking you now to buy into that. Basically, I'm saying this is a subscription based. I'm going to charge you for my content. Now, some might buy, some might not. That's fine. Each his own, apples and oranges. The free content is going to maintain the free content. In this case, when you're buying into an athlete, there are so many variables that are out there and extraneous variables where you have to really, really be careful, because I believe in a situation like this, the devil's in the details with these contracts when you invest in an athlete. And I'm wondering, what kind of verbiage is in there just in case a player does something to void out a contract, just in case a player does something where they break the moral clause, just in case the player does something or something happens out of their control and they can't play. You have to be really, really careful. It's totally different than just buying into regular content and trying to get value back from that. Like if it's gambling advice or betting advice and you're buying into that and you think, hey, I'm gonna go with this guy. He's a winner. He's 78% clip, and I'm just gonna keep riding it out with him. And then as soon as I'm really profitable, I get like a 10 bagger, 10 times my investment. I'm pulling out, and that's it. With this, it's too worrisome. It's too troublesome to me. It really is. And like I said, the issue is when you have the apps that allow the micro betting, it's now in everything. I mean, remember those kids from U Stadium? They do a great job. They're very entertaining on X. They follow the Jets in the NFL. When they were betting on Angel Reese, the prop was she's going to miss her first shot every single solitary time. So now micro betting is I can sit there and say, all right, Wheeler's pitching into the seventh. I'm going to say that he's facing Alonso, and that first pitch is going to be a ball. Oh, it's a strike. All right, now I want it to be a ball second. But no, I'm going to ride it out to a second. Like, it's not regulated. That's the problem. That's the problem. And again, because these sports, football is going to do it too, right? The next play, is it going to be pass interference? Is it going to be a third down conversion? Is it going to be play action? Is it going to be a dump off to the running back? Is it going to be a slant for 12 yards when they need 8? Is it going to be a touchdown? I mean, it's absolutely crazy. It really is. There's too many moving parts, period. And I think you have to be very, very careful, and you really have to do your due diligence. Like for me, I would steer clear of this. It's different if I'm going with something that I know is tangible. If I'm investing in, say, content, right? Content. If I'm in a platform where I know athletes are vested in this platform, and then I'm going to get content that the athletes are doing or creating, I'm okay with that because I know the source. This, I'm giving you my money. I'm hoping this guy hits the bank. I'm hoping this guy breaks the bank. I'm hoping this guy has a career year. And oh, by the way, I hope he doesn't do anything that disrupts that, i.e., gets banned for gambling, i.e., is DFA'd, i.e., is sent down, i.e., gets hurt. Some things I can't control. That would make me very, 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 very worried. It really would. De facto chimes in. Wardrobe looks like you may have invested. I did not. It's 96. It's a t-shirt day, and it's a very nice t-shirt indeed. By the way, you don't need to thank me for the winners that I gave out last night. My sources tell me the betting was props for first pitch ball strike. Your sources? I mean, what are you talking about? It's the same friggin' thing everyone else read online. Can MLB regulate some of the prop betting? No, they're not going to. They're not. They're not going to regulate prop betting, because it's not baseball that's regulating it. It's the sports betting apps. Now, they can turn around if MLB pushes them a little bit and says, we don't want these bets to be made available. See, that's the problem. Like with these micro betting, as a bettor, or even a novice bettor, red flags can be raised when you see like a very goofy type of bet or a larger wager bet on balls and strikes out of nowhere. Or I'm the bettor. I sign up for DraftKings under Rich Q or Q, and I see Wheelers on the hill. And typically, if I'm doing any type of in game live betting or micro betting, maybe my bets are 25 bucks. Maybe once in a while I'm uberly aggressive and I decide I'm going to up it. I'm going to double it. I'm going to go to 50. I'm going to juice a little bit, maybe 55. Okay, fine. They're tracking that. They're tracking that. These sites track it. It's all part of RG, responsible gaming. Now you see me jump when Wheeler pitches again, or let's say that same game, he's in the sixth, and the first 5+ innings, 5 2/3, I decide 25, 25, 25, 50, 25, 25, 50, 30. Then boom, I lay $2,000, I lay $3,000. That's a red flag, right? The antenna goes up and they're like, hold on a second, look at his average bet. This guy, it's totally different where you're sitting at a table in the casino in AC or Vegas and you're playing blackjack. Whether it's 4 shoots, 6 shoots, whether you're getting in mid shoot, if it's 25, chances are you're not. But let's just say you buy in with a couple $100 and you're playing at a $25 table and you're playing $25 consistently for like an hour plus. Then all of a sudden, you're hitting a couple splits, you're hitting a couple double downs. Now you start to increase, so you're bumping it up 5 units, 10 units. That's progressive betting. Like that's the norm. Everyone does that. Everyone does that. Then maybe you got you're feeling way ambitious and you're 25, now 30 becomes 60 because you just hit, you got a nice blackjack on the other side. So you're going to play your winnings on the blackjack. If I jump from, let's say 25, all of a sudden to 500 or $1,000, even if it's a $25 table and I bought in with say 500 and I'm up 1,500 and I start to do 250 to 500 bets, that is a red flag. That is a red flag. That's when the phone rings. All of a sudden, boom, you got the pit boss, you got the, shift supervisor. They kind of do the walk around. Like you have to be very careful with that, but you can control it is what I'm saying. You can control it. Now they'll think, okay, is this person getting a good luck, good run of cards? Is he counting? That's why you have the eye in the sky. Same premise, same idea, even though you really can't control it with the micro betting in baseball or the NBA. If I'm going to sit there and say the next shot's going to be a slam dunk, it's going to be a layup. If somehow someone gave me inside information that, what, I think if I get this guy in the 5th inning, the first 2 pitches are going to be balls. And you see by the video, they were so outside the strike zone. One, I think, bounced a couple of times. Like that is a red flag. And all of a sudden, whether it's DraftKings or BetMGM or I don't know, FanDuel or a BetDSI, they see a spike in bets at that moment or prior to that moment. And Rich Q's $25, $50 bets become $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 like that. That is going to cause a little bit of an uproar. That's going to cause a little bit of a red flag. So to De Facto's point, the entities, baseball really can't do anything in that regard. It's their partners, their betting partners. It's the sports books. And that's why typically guys, sometimes you're flagged with certain bets. Some sports books can't handle certain bets when you walk up to the window. They can't. There's some sports books in Atlantic City where if you want to go and say throw, $25,000, $30,000 on the Super Bowl, some can't take it. Some can't. They can't take that action, smaller sports books. And there's also a limit with some of these online apps. But ultimately, baseball, they've opened up this Pandora's box. They've opened this up. And if I'm going to invest in a player, I'm very weary to, maybe if I got stake in a horse or something like that, or if say I'm an agent or something like that, then I've got some stake, I've got some equity in the bank. That's a little different. It's a little more tangible. I'm not going to, look at some of these athletes and then give my money to some of these online entities, or in this case, this company, hoping, praying, wishing that this athlete strikes gold, because I really don't know if I'm going to get return on my investment. How do I know? Like, what's the legality? What's the regulations? What are the restrictions? What if they break that contract? What if they decide, yeah, this guy basically broke the bank. He got Juan Soto money, but the company's keeping it. You're not getting anything. Like, I just, I'm telling you right now, man, it just, it doesn't sit right with me. But the issue is too with baseball is I don't believe that this is an isolated incident. I really don't. Sarge chimes in. Q, excellent hit last night with the Rockies. I told you. Nick and Wallingford, Q, what do you think the chances are the Phillies make a big splash at the deadline? I'm going to get into that. And Sarge, thank you. I'm actually going to get into some of these trade rumors on the other side, 20 past 4 o'clock hour. I'll continue to take your thoughts as well. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock. Lloyd Vance jumping in at 5 o'clock, and we will get into some, I think, hidden gems, sleepers, dark horses for player props in the NFL. But we'll talk a little MLB trade deadline, which is right around the corner. If you guys want to continue with the Class A conversation and sports betting and the gambling with baseball, got some guys also hit me up on Facebook. We will do that as well. 421 on a Tuesday edition, Middays with Q. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. We'll get to your comments as well on the other side. Don't forget, as always, get social with us. You can join in on the conversation. Very, very easy to do at Rich Q on Q on X and IG. And, of course, TikTok, Rich Q. On the mic, quick timeout. We'll come back. I promise we will get to your comments as well, whether you guys are just chiming in at 4, 410, 415, 420. It's not a problem. We'll read them up on the other side.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
Hidden in an abandoned campground in South Jersey lies a mystical encounter with brews and spirits, where bonfires burn, shadows dance, and flavor favors the bold. Ghosts, ghouls, goblins, grown-ups, it's time to reclaim Halloween. This is Witchcraft, October 10th and 11th. For tickets and information, visit witchcraftnj.com.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pascoe. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
All right, 424. Good stuff with the eyeballs. Appreciate you guys. A lot of guys chiming in right now on X. That's fantastic. Thank you as always. We'll take up to 6. What do we got there? Madman chimes in. I figured I can arrive late since my comments pre 4 p.m. Get deleted. I mean, I'm glad you're kind of reading the room on that one. But no, your comments will never get deleted. Come on, you know that. You know that you're trending to becoming, that Hall of Fame commenter / listener. De facto, this is what happens when the private equity firm, the corporation, gets their hooks into you, you start showing up late. Note the Bunker Boys were here on time. 4 o'clock is when we started the show. I know what's happening. It's because when we fire off on a couple of the other platforms via Boxcast, I have to make sure that it hits, prior to test it. So I get what you're saying. You guys jump on the YouTube channel, and then what happens is you see the one, and then all of a sudden that's 20 seconds gone, disappeared, bye via con Dios, and then you see the new link. So we are trying to remedy that. But to de facto's point, the Bunker Boys, they decide that you're trying to pick and choose their moments. And also, this is what we learned on Monday's show. Bunker Boys take ill-advised shots at those that can't defend themselves. And we'll just leave it at that. We will just leave it at that. So Nick asked what I thought about the trade deadline for the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, I will say this. I would not put it past anyone if the Phillies decided to dangle Castellanos out there. Remember now, he signed that 5-year, $100 million contract. Now, listen, I know he's a fan favorite, but I also think you watch that, with the trade deadline right around the corner. Listen, they have to. They have to. Right now, if you think about this, Heyman reported that Castellanos was linked to the Royals as a potential trade target. Now, again, that kind of feels a little goofy on the surface because Kansas City isn't really known for seeking out high salary players, and they're kind of just clinging to life support right now with these wild card thoughts, wild card contention right now. But again, remember, a lot of times in baseball where there's smoke, there's always fire, period. So if it's not Kansas City, I think the idea of trading him, you might think that's too hard to kind of wrap your head around because he's under contract for $20 million next season, which is a very, very hefty price tag. Now, he's got some power at times. We've seen it, especially in the middle of the lineup. It seems like a good character guy, cultural fit. I don't know necessarily if the Phillies would move him. I don't. I think if they choose to do that, the likelihood of their moving him is if they add another outfielder to take a spot, then deal him for help, most likely from the bullpen. But I believe the Phillies are going to make a move. And here's another. So does anyone else think that Pittsburgh is wasting this young kid's career? I mean, this kid, this pitcher is unbelievable. He really is. He really is. This kid is just a stud. And I know we always butcher his name, Skenes, but his numbers don't do him justice. They don't. He's getting 0 run support. Like 0 run support. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, man, this kid's 22, 23. Would the Mets make a play for this kid? Would the Yankees make a play for this kid? Would the Phillies make a play for this kid? I mean, you're giving up a lot, boatload, but that's how good I think this kid is, period. If good value can be gotten for Casty, then trade him. Would he consider good value, though? Right? Would he consider good value? I think the Phillies right now, if you go around baseball and you start to talk about the trade deadline, with these teams and with these clubs, right? Now, there's also some thought that, the Phillies, yes, the Fightins, ring the bell, the Philadelphia Phillies might be able to lay in a couple big fish. Now, I'll tell you too, there's, again, a thought out there that we know the Phillies need reliever help, and they can always get another infielder, another utility man. So now there's thoughts, okay, would you make the call to Minnesota? Because it seems as though Minnesota's phone's been ringing off the hook by all indications. And you try to make a play for Griffin Jacks and then Will Castro. So the Phillies need a reliever. They need a reliever. Romano has pitched to like a 70 RA. Alvarado is ineligible for the postseason because of the PEDs. And if you look at this kid's metrics, they're right there. I mean, they're right there. And you need another bat. That's the other thing. You need another bat. Now, I don't know. Am I going to ask for, say, like a Crawford in this deal? I don't know if the Phillies are willing to part with a Crawford. like their crown jewel. But you're going to see a ton of movement in baseball. You're going to see a substantial amount of movement in baseball with the trade deadline right around the corner. Yankees got to do something. Yankees got to do something. They stink right now. They stink. And I think the Mets are probably going to look to upgrade their rotation as well. I gotta hand it to the Mets, though. I'll say this. Early on, they were playing really good baseball. And then they had that horrible losing streak. They just could not get out of their way. They just couldn't get out of their way. Now, granted, they lost last night, tough game to the Padres 7-6, but they've been on a tear. They stubbed their toe against the Reds. They dropped 2 out of 3, but they had the big win, okay? The big win the other night. They had that 2-1 win over the Giants. Then they came back. They swept them, really. Well, they did sweep them, not really. They swept them. They swept the Angels. I think they had a 7-game winning streak. And then last night, that's a tough loss. Diaz has the walk-off single. It's a wild win. The bullpen didn't do what they needed to do for the Mets. But I still think the Mets, they're going to be a big-time player here. They really are. And now, all of a sudden, we talk about Soto. Soto's putting up some monster numbers. Juan Soto is quietly really putting together a nice season. He's starting to heat up a little bit. He really is. But the Mets are going to be a player. The Braves, I think, are going to sell off. We already know Colorado, Chicago, Pittsburgh, they're going to sell off. We know the Yankees are going to be buyers because that's exactly what the Yankees do. The Yankees are always going to be buyers, no matter what. They're always looking to upgrade. Now, the Diamondbacks, again, here's a team you might want to watch. The Diamondbacks. Because if I'm the Yankees, if I'm the Phillies, I'm thinking to myself, again, Suarez. The Diamondbacks are 5 games under 500, and they're 11 back in the West. They're not catching the Dodgers. I haven't put up the NL wildcard just yet. But if I am right now the Diamondbacks, I'm looking to ship out a couple players. I really am. I'm looking to sell a little bit. And I'll tell you something else, too. When we're talking about the infield for some of these teams, the kid Suarez. That's a name you have to watch. That is a name you have to watch. Again, you got to start to think about some of these arms, how we're going to factor in some of these arms. I'll give you another name. You got a first baseman, another infielder, Ryan O'Hearn from Baltimore. Baltimore is going to start shedding guys. Baltimore is going to start jetting set guys out. We know that. The one pitcher that I can think of is Loreno, who's the right-hander. He's 31. He's for Baltimore, kind of a journeyman. I'm sorry, the right fielder. He's a journeyman. He's 31. He's got some pop. He's got a little bit of power. So if there are teams that need a bat, there you go. That's a name to kind of watch. I don't see a lot of big name, say like the pitchers and the relievers we were talking about. Robert Jr. is probably going to get, Luis Robert Jr. is probably the best player on the White Sox, is going to get traded. He's going to get traded. He is. He really is. Now, there's, again, some thinking that Pittsburgh's going to start to trade off some players. Now, here's another question. If the Phillies, we believe the Phillies are more than a relief pitcher away, right? Right? So, if that's the case, would you put a package together involving a Luzardo or a Suarez to go after, as I mentioned, say like the kid from Minnesota? Because that seems to be the hot name, Griffin Jacks. He's 30 years of age. Again, the ERA, it's a little but you got to think that Minnesota hasn't been the best team. He's got some movement. He's got some good placement. He's pitched in a couple big spots before, but what are you willing to give up? That's where I think ultimately that's the question. What are we willing to give up? And we know there are so many teams out there. This is something we discussed with Steve Gardner. Every team probably needs bullpen help. Every team out there needs, pitching help. Think about the Guardians. If the Guardians were actually thinking, what if what if Cleveland was thinking about trading this kid, and now all of a sudden you can't do it because he's under investigation. Now think about this. Can you get, if you know there's an issue right now, you can still obviously, I believe you can still trade for him, right? Even though he's placed on leave among this investigation. Like, what's the value? What's the value right now? Because he was placed on paid leave, which is the worst timing. Because I believe he was going to be a sought after reliever on the trade market. So now, if you talk about the big board and where you have this guy, and if he's off the table, now all of a sudden the competition to land the rest of the field just got a lot of tougher, did it not? So, like, what would you ask for? And Pittsburgh has another one of their top choices in Bednar, right? And they're asking for a top 5 prospect in return, which is a very steep price to pay for a relief pitcher, although he's under team control for next season. So Cardinals are going to be active. Minnesota is going to be active. Mets are going to be active. Yanks going to be active. And certainly the Phillies are going to be active. Let me rip through some of these comments. We went through Sarge. We went through Nick. Kevin C. Chimes in. Q, did you see Neighbors got injured today in Giants training camp? Yeah, I saw that. I mean, they're saying, what did they say? It's a stinger, right? The shoulder injury. A lot of players are getting hurt. I think that's, let me see. Yeah, it's a shoulder injury scare. But apparently he will be okay. I want to, like I said, Kevin, I want to get your hopes up on Russell Wilson and the moon ball and the Giants. I really want it. I would just kind of, temper your enthusiasm a little bit. I saw that the Cardinals lost their cornerback for 6 weeks. I did see that. And the Colts, another monster deal, right? Left tackle in football, man, sought after position. Raymond, 4 years, $100 million. How about that shooter yesterday, too? That's horrible. That the shooter in New York apparently targeted the NFL headquarters. He claimed to have CTE. He never played in the NFL. Now, I had this conversation with someone yesterday, and they said, well, he killed himself. I said, yes, that's correct. And they said, well, why would he shoot himself in the chest? I said, well, most likely if they find a suicide note, I guarantee he probably wants them to take a look at the brain, hence not shooting himself in the head. But he killed 4 people, and they were targeting the headquarters of the NFL. But this is how goofy life is. He took the wrong elevator. And there was an off-duty New York cop that was killed. This kid played high school football in California roughly a decade ago, never played in the NFL, had a history of mental illness. That's just, Yeah, he said he was sorry. He asked that his brain be studied for CTE. According to the police department, the note also referenced former NFL player Terry Long, who was diagnosed with CTE. Remember Terry Long? I think he drank, what did he drink? The bleach? But he passed away like 20-something odd years ago. He killed himself too. That's tough, man. I mean, the guy got off on the wrong elevator. Just horrible, loss of life. Just unnecessary, really unnecessary. I mean, it's more will come out with this, but not a very good day for the NFL. Is Guyton out for the Cowboys? I'm not following the Cowboys. I mean, should we be following the Cowboys? I mentioned their cornerback. I know that he's, what was the last thing on him, right? I think he's got a bone fracture in his right knee, right? ACL is intact, but he's not going to require surgery. You're talking about the offensive tackle. I told you, the Cowboys are going to stink this year. What difference does it make? The only team the Eagles need to worry about right now in the NFC East, Washington. That's it. That's all they have to worry about is Washington. You don't have to worry about the Giants, and you don't have to worry about the Cowboys. I don't know why people think the Cowboys are going to be good. They're not. They're going to be bad. You're going to have 3 or 4 really good teams in the NFC. That's it. And you're going to have 2 or 3 or 4 really good teams in the AFC. Every other, it's just the league's watered down. Like, I feel like we have the same conversation year after year in the NFL. I really do. You got a handful of teams and everyone else, that's it. Cubby's sick. See, Q, did you see that Rhino passed away? Yeah, that's a shame. Sandberg was only 65. I was watching old YouTube clips. And remember, too, if you grew up in the South Jersey area, okay, if you grew up in the South Jersey area, back in the day, we used to get the Cubs channel. What the hell was it? Geez. WGN, which aired a lot of Cubs games. So yeah, as a kid, sure. You got WOR, which was the Mets. Obviously, you had Prism, which you would get all the Phillies games, right? And then PHL 17 back in the day, you get the Phillies games. And then, of course, Channel 11 in New York, all the Yankee games and Scooter. But I remember as a kid seeing so many Cub games, watching the Cubs game. I mean, it's crazy that you got that channel in Jersey and watching Sandberg. And, what's interesting about Sandberg is that, Ryan Sandberg had a very inauspicious start to his career. He really did. I mean, he kind of feeling his way through the minor leagues. And then he, caught the attention of a couple scouts for the Phillies. And at the time, they persuaded the late, great Dallas Green to draft Sandberg. And Sandberg wanted to play college football. He had football commitments. So they drafted him. They met with his family and basically, had to sit down to see, here we go. Here's the bonus, blah, 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 blah. And I don't even know what rookie level ball was back in the day. And he played shortstop. But again, kind of like Schmidt, when Schmidt was coming up, he had issues. He had some issues. And he had some inconsistencies. He was striking out. He showed that he can steal some bases. He can drive in a couple runs. But again, finally makes his major league debut. Think about this. He made his major league debut with the Phillies as a shortstop in 1981. 1981. And he batted 161. And they basically said, you know what? There's no way this kid's going to take Boa's spot at shortstop. And then what happens? They turn around and the Cubs swoop in, which is crazy. And he wasn't going to play on that team. You had Manny Trio. You had Schmidt. I mean, so think about that. So Sandberg played both second and third in the minor leagues. But, you weren't losing your spot to Trio. You certainly weren't losing your spot to Schmidt. By that time, Schmidt was arguably, one of the best third basemen. I would say probably around 78, 79, 80. That's when he started to really blossom and bloom. Not 76, but in the National League. So he was traded away along with Boa to the Cubs for Ivan De Jesus prior to the 82 season, and the rest is history. Now, think about that. A lot of people regard that trade as one of the most lopsided deals in baseball history because you had that new contract between Boa and the Phillies and it broke down. So and Sandberg had a wonderful career, man. I always thought Ryan Sandberg waited too long to stick him into the Hall of Fame. They really did. He had power at that position and few do, but definitely Hall of Fame worthy. And just 65 years old. The first thing that came to my mind was CT. Yeah. I think a lot of times, anytime we see a, athlete, right. And something like this happens, we want to automatically go right to CTE. And I understand, but the one thing that's we have to really be accurate with this. So he wasn't blaming, you know, on playing the game. He was blaming the NFL, right? So again, he didn't play in the NFL. He didn't play in the NFL. So it's like I'm blaming the people responsible for the game of football, ultimately. I mean, this is crazy. The NFL offices are on levels 5 through 8, and he mistakenly went up the wrong elevator. Imagine if this crazy person got off the right floor. I mean, it's bad enough there was loss of life. So he blamed football for his apparent struggle with CTE, pleaded for his brain to be studied in the wake of the massacre. He also has specifically, as I mentioned, referenced Terry Long. Terry Long football gave me CTE and it caused me to drink a gallon of antifreeze, the note stated, according to sources. You can't go. So this was actually sent to me from a couple guys that listened yesterday because they said, this is very eerie. My exact phrasing yesterday when we were talking about the NFL was, you go against the NFL, they're going to squash you. It's exactly what this kid said, quote, you can't go against the NFL, they're going to squash you. Please study brain for CTE. I'm sorry. The league knowingly concealed the dangers to our brains to maximize profits. They failed us. Well, that's where the movie Concussion came into play. Listen, no one will ever deny that the NFL is a violent sport. No one can ever deny that because of the speed, at which these players are running down the field and the strength and the pounds and the force and everything, the smashing, the hitting, constant repetition. Yes. Every time you get hit, the brain basically dislodges. And then a lot of these players, unfortunately, get some type of CTE, which leads into what? They have their breakdowns, they have dementia, they get Alzheimer's. I mean, it's horrible what they're doing, putting their bodies on the line like this. But you ask every single solitary player. I've said this so many times over the years. I've had players tell me this. You ask an NFL player, you rather get hit in the head or the knees? They will say the head every time. They will say the head every time. They know exactly what they're getting themselves into. But the NFL, we're not softening up the game. We're not softening up the game. It's just a part of the game, and they know that going forward. They can come up with every type of rhyme or reason. They can try to, fix these helmets, soften the helmets, widen the helmets, shorten the helmets, put the cushion in the helmets. The game is so violent. It's so violent that if you had 1,000 players play for 5 years, how many out of those 1,000 do you think eventually in their lifetime will be diagnosed when they were to pass? Because that's the only time you can diagnose it, CT, or show signs of it while they're alive. Because again, you can only diagnose it after they pass away. What did you say? 900, right? 900. Is that top 3 for worst Phillies move of all time? Shipping him off to Chicago. Yeah, I mean, that's bad. And yes, the Monday night game, Cubs and the Cardinals, he hit 2 home runs to win it. They called that the Sandberg game. Yep. I mean, I think in hindsight, if you look at that, you would probably say, yeah, because you had an unknown prospect, right? You had an unknown prospect, and you basically just jettisoned him away, and you didn't know what you had. And that happens sometimes in sports. I still think to this day, one of the worst trades the Phillies have ever made was Von Hayes. The Phillies get Von Hayes, and Cleveland gets Manny Trio, Julio Franco, Jay Baylor, and think Vukovic and Jerry Willard. And remember what Pete Rose said, 541. That's the nickname when the Phillies acquired Von Hayes, right? 5-for-1 because he gave up a haul. Paul Owens, the Pope, gave up a haul, gave up an absolute haul. That was a horrible trade. That was a horrible trade. Nick was a big Chase fan. No, I mean, you got everything you wanted to at that moment, right? With Chase, you got everything you wanted to. The Von Hayes, people would just look at that and say, not good. Shane Victorino, Freddie Garcia, I think no matter what, it's Sandberg because of what Sandberg became. Because nobody knew. Schilling is different. Like, Schilling, Schilling started his career with Baltimore, if you guys remember. And the Phillies, they send Schilling to Arizona. You get Padilla from Nicaragua. He made an all-star game, Vicente Padilla, if I recall. Padilla's Tortillas, I believe so. Travis Lee, remember him? And Figgy, Nelson Figueroa, and I think another player. But, that's almost like what could have been at that time. Now, if you want to go back, the Phillies also traded Ferguson Jenkins. So if you want to talk about what could have been, there you go. But I still think, definitely, Sandberg. Because the Cubs got Sandberg and Boa, and the Phillies get Ivan De Jesus. I mean, that's bad. Remember how the Phillies were always the joke because the Phillies would go out and they would get the other brother, right? Mike Maddox, not Greg Maddox. Jeremy Giambi, not Jason Giambi. Von Hayes was, Von Hayes had a decent career, but I think for what they gave up, Von Hayes played, 6, 7, 8 years with the Philadelphia Phillies. But I think it was the expectation, 5-for-1, right? 5-for-1. And he probably had his best year in 86. But I'm looking at his stats right now. I mean, they're not, for back then, they're not going to blow you away. You make a trade like that, okay? And Von's a really, really, really nice guy. I've had Von Hayes on the air many times. He's a really nice guy, man. He'll kind of chuckle about it. He was a little standoffish back in the day with the media and whatnot. But, he had a couple nice seasons. He was, decent. He was decent. But I think when you trade 5 players and you're trying to, you're giving up that king's ransom, right? Let me see. Some NFL tweets. We'll get into 505. I told you I got some good player props. I want to get into that. But Jared chimes in. Q, do you see the Chargers are going to start Trey Lance at quarterback on Thursday night versus Detroit in the Hall of Fame game? 2 things. We got football. And the second thing is, did you even know he was with the Chargers? Trey Lance. Man, you talk about a horrible draft pick. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Horrible. How about this? You got football. Blue Jays are acquiring Sir Anthony Dominguez from the O's for pitching prospect Juwan Watts-Brown, according to multiple sources. All right, fast approaching 5 o'clock. Lloyd Vance at 5:05. BG Nut chimes in. Q, do you remember the date that Rhino game was? I know it was a back and forth game in Wrigley. I know it was what was that, 84? Had to be 84, right? 85. But I know that was a back and forth game. I think he had a home run late, tied it, then he won it, right? A couple home runs. I don't know. Let's see. Let's go to our good friend Google, the Sandberg. And who did he hit those off of? I know. Who was the closer? Was it Sutcliffe? Sandberg game. Here you go. 84. He had 2 home runs in the 9th and the 10th innings to propel the Cubs to a 12-11 victory. They overcame deficits of 7-1, 9-3, and 11-9. Now, if you remember, that Cubs team in 81 was a very good team. I mean, they won close to 100 games. Now, this shows you the old school baseball fans, the old school. How about the East Division? How about that? The NL East back in the day. You had Pittsburgh, you had Montreal, you had the Titans, you had the Cardinals, you had the Mets, and you had the Cubbies. And that was also the year that the Cubs lost in the NLCS against San Diego. That was a Leon Durham when the ball rolled through his legs. That was a very good Cubs team that year. That's unfortunate. Really unfortunate. All right. Fast approaching 5 o'clock. We'll get to your comments on the other side. Quick timeout. We'll reset the table as well. We'll take you up to 6.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
Hidden in an abandoned campground in South Jersey lies a mystical encounter with brews and spirits, where bonfires burn, shadows dance, and flavor favors the bold. Ghosts, ghouls, goblins, grown-ups, it's time to reclaim Halloween. This is Witchcraft, October 10th and 11th. For tickets and information, visit witchcraftnj.com.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pascoe. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
All right, fast approaching the 5 o'clock hour, 16 of books. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. De facto chimes in. I'm starting to get a little concerned here with de facto because I feel as though this is almost like a, you know how Pablo Torre is, obsessed with Belichick. I feel like Washington, the Commanders, are in the heads of the Eagles fans. Does the Cortland Sutton deal affect your boy TM? Is it good or bad? Last year, Sutton and Terry had similar stats. Again, why are you guys so concerned with what Washington is doing unless you're starting to get a little worried that the Commanders are going to knock you off your perch? I feel as though when you talk about a team as much as you guys do that you don't follow, that is a red flag. That to me is you're scared. You're scared. You're scared right now. You're saying to yourself, this might be it. It was a nice little run. 2 Super Bowls, 3 years, get a Super Bowl win. Washington's on the rise. Forget about all the drama. They've got a stud quarterback. They got the right coaching staff in place. They've got some weapons. And man, maybe last year was just kind of a one and done situation for the Philadelphia Eagles. Maybe that's what you guys are thinking. I don't know, because I've never in my life have had Eagles fans so concerned over Washington, or you guys are basically just trolling me because I said Washington is going to push Philadelphia. So I don't know. Where's the truth here? Where's the truth? Can we just admit Washington's a good football team? But if you're an Eagles fan, worry about the Eagles. Stop worrying about the Washington Commanders and what they're doing or what they're not doing. Worry about week 1, Thursday night football. You got your rings, you get your banner, open up the season prime time against the Dallas Cowboys. 1 series, 1 quarter, 1 game. That's all you got to worry about. That's it. This obsession. I mean, it's borderline psychotic. This obsession for you guys. Dealing about Washington. Getting so worried about Washington. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, football starts. It's right around the corner, which will lead us into hour number 2. As I mentioned, we will get into some interesting player props. By the way, Casey chimes in, Q, very relieved that Justin Fields is okay. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think you should be if you're a Jets fan. If you're a Jets fan, and I think Fields is going to have a nice season. Now, I still don't believe the Jets are going to be a playoff team, and I've got some numbers to back that up. But I think Fields is going to have a really nice season with the Jets. And listen, it's a fresh start for this kid. He's 26 years of age. The problem with this kid early on in his career, the Chicago Bears did a horrible job protecting him. He was sacked 36, 55, and 44 times. Right? Alex Alberta G, going old school with the shout out. I think they're actually going to get their name changed back, but we don't know. Now, unfortunately, the bunkers in the DMV, I'm inundated with your Commanders coverage. I would never troll you, Q. It's not inundated with Commanders coverage. We talk NFC East constantly on the air. Constantly. All I'm saying is that I think the NFL, we know there's 4 or 5 really good teams in each conference. It'll be compelling. We know that the NFL's, we love the NFL. We get engaged. We're all in. But we also know there are surprises. That's all I'm saying. We also know from time to time, you will have a team that comes out of nowhere that upsets the apple cart. Now, did Washington surprise us last year? You guys, yes. Me, no, because I said they were going to make the playoffs. They made it all the way to the NFC Championship. We predicted they were going to go on the road and also beat the Detroit Lions. So like I said, you guys got on me for that. You trolled me for that. Speaking of trolls, Vince chimes in. Sup, fellas? Did this guy start the show talking baseball again? Saw the headline and almost didn't even turn on the stream. Somebody let Q know we don't talk baseball until October when it counts. Well, here, how about this, Vince? If you listened to me yesterday, did I not give you a bona fide lock with the Q-fecta? I gave you that sucker. What did I say? Quote, go grab the Rockies over the Guardians because of the nonsense and the distraction of the Guardians. And what happened last night? Did I not put some coin in the pocket for you, clowns? I did. So we talked baseball to start the show. Yes, we did. And now we're talking NFL in hour number 2. Lloyd's going to join us momentarily. So I got some good plays. I got some sleeper picks, some dark horses, some potential projections when we're starting to talk about stat-wise with some of these players. And they're not just quarterbacks, mind you. They're not just quarterbacks. What do we got here? Ooh, another injury was this today? For the Browns, huh? Their cornerback carted off with an Achilles injury. Ooh, not good. Martin Emerson Jr. carted off during Tuesday's practice, suffering an Achilles injury. According to the team, is going to get an MRI to confirm the severity. Not good. Non-contact, man. Always non-contact. Never a good thing. All right, 5:03, quick timeout. Lloyd Vance on the other side. Keep it locked in. Tuesday edition, Middays with Q. We'll take up to 6 o'clock straight up.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
All right, 5:05 on a Tuesday edition, Middays with Q. Rich Quiñones here. We'll take up to 6 o'clock straight up. Don't forget, Monday to Friday, 4 to 6, of course, on IG and X at Rich Q on Q, TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You guys have been fantastic. Picked up another, almost 200 subs over the last couple of weeks. We appreciate it. Definitely think you guys are enjoying the show and the content. So you guys are telling us you are. That's always a good thing. Person that always enjoys jumping on the show, and we enjoy him, our good friend Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. SR 1029 FM The Game does a great job as host every Monday night. Don't forget, you can follow him on social as well at Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join me in his regular spot at 5:05 on a Tuesday. How are you, my friend?
Doing great, Q. We're getting in the heat of training camp here.
Yeah, we are. I mean, the temperature is actually just nauseum levels right now. All right, let's do a little housekeeping notes real quick, and then we'll kind of get into the topic of the day. I mentioned some injuries with the Browns. Fields is back. Cowboys lose Carson for 4 to 6 weeks. We got that big signing with the Colts. I am curious. Do you believe there's more to this Wilkins story with the Raiders than than what is being said out there? I mean, obviously, he didn't get cut slash released because he kissed one of his teammates on the forehead. I think more of it was because he was kind of dancing around on a video when he should have been rehabbing his injury. But I feel like there's going to be more to this story that comes out.
Yeah, Q. It's a situation where I think you got a new regime coming in there. John Spytek, the general manager, Pete Carroll, the head coach, and they want to kind of start molding this team and organization into what they want to be. And Wilkins, apparently, there was some issue in terms of him rehabbing that Jones injury to his foot and where he was going to do it, whether he prepared enough for training camp, etc. And they're on the hook for a lot of guaranteed money to him. And I think that factored in their Q, possibly about $48 million guaranteed. And the only way you can do that is the union's going to get involved. You know what I mean? They're going to cut them, and then the union, and then there's going to be a grievance, et cetera. And a lot of times it's conduct detrimental. And I think that's kind of what is being leaked here and kind of being built by the club, saying, okay, there was some conduct in the locker room that's detrimental, kind of void some things. But yeah, it's a mess, Q. And you may see him go to another team. Think about Nodicom Sue at the end of his career. He kind of moved around, went to different places. And I could see somebody looking to do that with Christian Wilkins.
Look, he can play. And I think, as we know, as long as you can play, I mean, obviously, first and foremost, he's got to take care of that injury and heal. But we know how the NFL works, right? I mean, there's a variety of reasons why guys get cut, released, or traded. Sometimes we never really know. A lot of times it has to do with the money at the end of the day and these guaranteed contracts and not paying the guy in the post June 1st cut and the cap casualties. That's the NFL period. And this is where, teams start to kind of scour, right? As we kind of say goodbye to training camp soon with the preseason right around the corner, which kind of leads me into this. There's a couple guys commenting regarding CT. We'll get into that, I promise you guys, because these are good takes that you guys have. But I always look at it like this. I threw this out yesterday. Do you foresee the NFL eventually going to 20 games? We kind of went around with the listeners yesterday regarding the expansion of the league and bringing in more franchises, and say 2 more in the States, and let's just say 2 more overseas. So now you've got expansion by 4 and the season goes to 20 games.
Yeah, it's always in play, Q. The collective bargaining agreement will last until I think about 2028, 2030, somewhere around there. They can renegotiate it. And they got to incentivize the players to take those extra games. Obviously, we've already started talking about that 18th game is probably a done
Yep.
deal because 17 is kind of already odd. And it just kind of, when you look at records and standings, et cetera, it's kind of factored in there. So, Q, yeah, it's always in play. And the only thing is the union. It's a mess right now. You got Lloyd Howe in his situation. They don't really have a head, and they're going to have to figure this thing out. But yeah, I wouldn't put past them to, put 20 games. And definitely, they've been talking for a while, putting a team in London and putting a team in Germany. So that would not surprise me. trying to do that. Maybe it might even be the Jaguars. Q. Shad Khan for years has said can't make any money in Jacksonville and makes a ton on those international games. That's why they give up a couple home games every year.
Yeah, I actually brought them up, and I think they're trying to get like a 30-year lease. But you're right; they get 100% profit when they're playing over in London. So Alex Alberto G chimes in, sending love to the NFL headquarters in Manhattan. It got attacked last night by that coward. NFL is going above and beyond concerning CTE. Yeah, I touched a little bit on that. It's a really bad situation. Just what transpired. I mean, the kid got off on the wrong floor. God forbid if he would have actually got on the right floor. And there's still loss of life, right? Dealing with a mental illness, and you don't take that lightly. Obviously, in the manner in which he killed himself in the chest as opposed to in the head, you're still going to be able to, again, you have to wait for, unfortunately, to pass when you can see if someone has CTE. But I always have this conversation with people, and you and I have talked about this. We've spoken to players about this for years. You ask any player, and if you guys are just tuning in, bear with me. If you already heard me say it before, bear with me again. Would you rather get hit in the knees or the head? They're always going to say the head. They're never going to say the knees. They're always going to say the head. I mean, it's a violent sport. Like no matter what, CTE is running rampant and prevalent in the NFL, and it's almost like this damned if you do, damned if you don't, because as fans, even when we're not covering the sport or talking about it for a living, we love the violence. We love that gladiator, that warrior mentality. But then we want to kind of stick to the back, the remnants of that. The players dealing with dementia, Alzheimer's, early cases of studies in CTE, memory loss, schizophrenia, like so many issues. But again, I go back, how do you fix it? And I asked you purposely about the expansion and, expanding the season because you add more games, then guess what? Guys are going to be more prone to hits and injuries. So it's like this damned if you do, damned if you don't. They want it because they know they can make more money, but also in the back of their mind, you're also thinking, well, you're more prone to get injured.
Yeah, and Q, I talk to a lot of veterans, older type players, and they're more concerned with this now. And these younger guys, you can't blame them. They're young, they feel like they're invincible, they want to maximize their dollars, etc. But there's a lot to think about after their playing days are over. And CT is very real. Everybody always talks about that concussion movie and everything that came along with that lawsuit and how the NFL finally stopped denying and they kind of told the truth and paid up and yeah, it's ugly, and it's unfortunate, but people love it. They love the gladiator mentality. It's crazy they got rid of those NFL crash course tapes. Remember those? That were so prevalent. NFL films put out every year, and you see Roddy Lott and all these guys, Steve Atwater, jacking
That's why
people
they
up. And
changed a lot of the segments. He got jacked up. Remember all that,
yeah,
or the big hits? They don't glorify it anymore. But it's the
yeah,
reality is it's part of the game. They're
right.
bigger, stronger, faster. It's a collision sport.
It is. It is. And you know, no matter what, defenseless receiver, all that kind of thing, they're just not going to litigate it out, and it's just something they're going to have to continue working through. And as you know, someone that coached youth football and had a youth football players, it's just like, all right, all the kids still want to play, but there's not a way to teach them techniques. You know what I mean? In terms of you're going to get hit. It's a violent sport, as you were saying. So you know,
And
I
you
think
got
the
some of these
number.
youth football coaches that are
Yeah,
idiots. They have no clue how to coach. They have no clue how to teach
right,
tackling,
right.
right? At a young age, like that's you tackle the wrong way, you can be paralyzed. Like they glorify some of these. You know, it's just some of the stuff I see on social. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, who the hell is giving these guys a job to coach? Pop Warner. These kids, they're not even teaching proper technique.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like it's inevitable. You know what I mean? You can teach them a certain way, but it's still going to happen in games where these violent collisions and everybody says, oh well, maybe they go to rugby style tackle and all that, but then you start talking about the hip drop and then you get the purist cue. They're always like, put the flags on them. You know what I mean? But it's just part of the game, man.
Yeah.
It's part of the
Yeah.
game.
Vince chimes in, questions for Lloyd. More likely scenario: Hendrickson gets traded or signed, and same for Parsons in Dallas. Anyway, Jerry decides to cut his losses before the deadline this year.
Interesting. I would have to say the Bengals, now that they've signed Shamar Stewart, they kind of cleaned up that thing and got him into camp. Hendrickson's got to be what they're working on next. The only thing is, Mike Brown, as we know, is frugal as an owner, and then you have three guys on the offense in Burrow and Chase and Higgins making a ton of money. And do they have enough for Hendrickson? Now, Hendrickson is under contract, meaning he's getting fined $50,000 per day of camp that he's missing, and that can add up quick. So, it's going to be a situation who blinks first. And in terms of Dallas, it's just odd. It's Jerry being Jerry. I don't know how else to put it that way. He's the general manager. He's the owner. I think eventually he will get Micah Parsons his money, but he's kind of making him wait. And it was kind of weird, Q. He
Yeah.
gives Ferguson that deal this week,
Right.
and kind of a slap in the face of Micah Parsons. All right, he's more important than you, but they need him. I don't think they trade him.
Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, SR 1029 FM. The Game, Mondays 8 to 9. Joins me, obviously, during the NFL season. We start with our previews, our Back Your Play portion of the show, which is the BYP 20 for fresh roasted coffee, which leads us into our segment, Back Your Play portion of Middays with Q. All right, so some, players, a couple from me, a couple from you, projected stats, if you will. We think some of these players might actually hit that mark, come under the mark. I'm wondering if, we haven't discussed who we have, who you have, who I have. So I'll fire off. I'm going to go first. I'm going to go quarterback position, and you might kind of take a step back, but I'm going to go Michael Penix Jr., Atlanta. So right now he is projected to have right around 3,300 passing yards and 18 and a half passing touchdowns. So I projected out with his offense. And again, look, we know that if the Falcons want to be a sleeper pick and make it to the playoffs, they're going to have to, again, throw the football, and this kid's going to have to scramble and run. And he showed a little bit of that upside as a passer. If you look at his PFF passing grade, right around 84%. Now, I know a 3, 4, 5 game sample size is not enough, but I think with the weapons, they can open up that offense. I can see him throwing for right around 3,600 yards and close to 22 touchdowns. And in today's NFL, like if you can't throw for 3,500 yards and 25 touchdowns, then honestly, you're not an NFL starting caliber quarterback. But I do like their weapons, even though I don't think they're going to be a very good team. I mean, hell, Kirk Cousins threw for 3,500 yards and 18 touchdowns. So what say you on those numbers for Penix?
Yeah, Q. I definitely think he can achieve those numbers, and I probably would go over, particularly on a yardage, because I think the Falcons are going to be in a lot of shootout types games. Yes, they have Jesse Bates, and
Yep.
they trying to fix that defense. They went pass rush heavy in the first round, and even later in the draft. So, but the thing is, I think they'll be behind in games. He's going to get his opportunities to throw, and also when we're looking at these projections, you got to look at games.
Yeah,
Is a
sure.
guy going to get hurt? And also, is there somebody breathing down his neck? Well, it's clearly Kirk Cousins is now the backup there. Raheem Morris and Fontenot, the general manager there, they decide Penix is their guy. So he should get 15 starts. And you're right. In today's NFL, he should get over, 3,500 yards. And that 25 touchdown barometer with that puts him in the top 16 of the quarterbacks. You got to have that. And when you talk about Drake London, Bijan Robinson,
Yep. Yep.
they're hoping to bounce back here from Pitts. There's enough weapons there that he should be able to do it. So yeah, I
And
agree.
there's going to be games. I thought you nailed it. There are going to be games, Lloyd, where they're going to have to put up points. Tampa Bay, Washington, Buffalo, Miami. I'm looking. Seattle. The Rams. So yeah, I like those numbers. So I'm going to kind of bookmark that one, and I'm going to actually play those numbers. I'm going to play the over. So that's kind of one of my first players. What do you got?
Yeah, I have a couple guys I was looking at, but an interesting one, and everybody's talking about him coming into fantasy football drafts and everything, is Ashton Genty, running back for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yep.
What is he going to do? Everybody knows last year in college in only 14 games, 2,600 yards, 29 touchdowns, which are just astronomical. You're not going to have that in the NFL. So his projection right now is 1,248 yards and
Okay.
8 touchdowns.
How
So
many?
8, 8 rushing
Okay.
touchdowns.
Okay.
So, when you look at the Raiders attack, um, Jacoby Myers, they brought in a couple receivers in the draft. I think Geno Smith is going to be able to um, have good numbers, getting back with Pete Carroll. But I think it's going to be a run first offense. And Pete Carroll's looking for his Marshawn Lynch. So I think Ashton Jennings going to get his opportunities. He's only, though, 5'8", 211. So he's got to put on a little size. NFL, we talked about the physicality of it just a few minutes ago. But um, I think he can easily get 1,300 yards over that mark. Now, that 8 touchdowns, that may be a lot for a rookie, particularly when you talk about the goal line and getting vultured. So I say he hits the yardage, but not the touchdowns.
So you're looking at 80 plus yards. I mean, 100 gets you 1,700 right there. I think CBS, interesting because I was actually going to have him on my board as a player, but I decided to go with another running back we'll get into in a couple moments. They have him right around 274 carries, just under 1,200 yards, and then 10 touchdowns. So, again, damned if you do, damned if you don't. You go under the yards. Are you more inclined to go over those yards? I'm sorry, and under touchdowns, or under yards over touchdowns?
Yeah, I'd say over the yardage and then under the touchdowns. I think that's a lot of touchdowns. A lot of times you'll see a bigger back come in at the goal line, and then you also maybe Geno Smith steals some TDs from him in terms of rushing the football. So, yeah, I think Genty will have a solid rookie season as long as he stays healthy.
All right, I'm going to stick with the AFC West and my Denver Broncos. I was surprised by these numbers. Marvin Mims Jr. I mean, you're talking 550 receiving yards. That's it. Like I kind of had to do a double take when I was looking at that for a minute. I'm like 550 receiving yards when I'm very high on the quarterback. Now, maybe that number's dropped a little bit, and I don't know. You tell me. I mean, last year he had 503. You got Sutton, who's a stud, but you also brought in Ingram. So I don't know if maybe he doesn't get as many targets in his direction, but I will say this: he's, he's kind of like that one trick deep ball threat. And I think now, if they utilize him a little more, even in the slot here and there, I think his production, I think he's poised to have at least 750 to 800 yards, even though we already know they can run the football. They got Ingram, they got something, they've got some weapons. So I'm looking for Bo Nix to really develop a good rapport with him. But man, 550, I just, man, I look, you catch him, he has a run where he gets, a couple 50, 60, 70 yarders here and there, and he's catching, 6 for 84, 7 for 110. I definitely think he can easily hit that number and go over it.
Yeah, and you have Peyton open up the whole playbook this season to Bo Nix. And Bo Nix last year, I think he had over 3,700 yards or something like that. So, he's going to get his opportunities to throw the football down
Yep,
the field.
3,700.
And Mims, he's a big play waiting to happen. He's got the very elite speed. You got Sutton working underneath. As you said, Ingram's coming in. They got Harvey, the young running back, coming over. So I think they're going to spread this football around. And easily I could see him getting 700 yards, and especially in that mountain air. They like to air it out, man, and throw it deep. So I think he's going to get his opportunities. I think that's a good pick to go over. What was his TD number?
I'll pull up his TD in a second. I do want to ask you regarding Sutton because he reached that $92 million extension. How do you think now that plays out with Washington with McLaurin?
Yeah, another barometer out there, Q. But a lot of people I've been talking to has said that the Commanders are kind of dug in on this one in terms of McLaurin. They're like, well, is he really worth it? Do they want to Go that route, and you have Adams coming over from the Niners as the general manager. He's dealt with this situation before with Ayuk, and he got kind of burned on it. So we'll see how this kind of plays out. But yeah, McLaurin's going to be interesting. He's doing that hold-in thing, so he doesn't get fined at 50 grand a day. He says he has a hurt ankle, quote unquote, and but he's in the meetings, he's there, and they're having discussions. But yeah, definitely seeing Sutton getting his money, that's definitely got to say, all right, what about me?
So I don't see. Let me see. The only thing I see, and I'm looking at a couple different books right now and projections, it's kind of varied all over the place. One I'm seeing 6, another I'm seeing 7. I mean, again, if I'm going to give you those numbers, then I'm confident saying he's going to have more than 6 touchdown receptions. I think I think the volume will be there, basically the increased volume. And here's another thing. Even if they decide once in a while, because he's physical, put him in the slot and see if he can break some here and there, to me, the yards after the catch. But I mean, in that offense, I can see multiple wide receivers, including Ingram, all have 8 to 10 touchdown receptions.
Yeah, and he's going to have his chances with that defense. That defense is going to get the ball back for the offense. They led the NFL in sacks last season, and it was Surtain, the second back there. They get a lot of turnovers in terms of interceptions. So I think it's a good thing for Mims. I think this offense is going to explode. Everybody's saying they have their triplets in place and everything, and definitely go for that 550, the over on that. I definitely like that. Now touchdowns are always kind of tricky, as I was saying, in terms of the vulturing and all that
Yeah,
stuff. Bo Nix can run as well, but
sure.
I think he's going to get his opportunities. They're going to score a lot of points as long as they stay healthy.
Did I pronounce uh, Terry's last name correctly?
I
McLaurin, right?
Yeah, Terry
I think I
McLaurin.
said McLaren the other day. It's tricky.
You know how it goes. I keep it moving. That's that.
Listen,
It's fine.
sometimes you got to point. I point the flaws
Exactly.
out. That's okay. I make mistakes. Sometimes when I'm doing the fights, if I can't pronounce somebody's last name, sometimes I'm just, hey, here comes Bob with a good jab.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Let me kick off to you. Give me a player.
Yeah, this one's interesting, kind of local flavor with the Eagles. Dallas Clark, Eagles tight end. Now, his
Ooh,
projections are 65 receptions, 83 targets.
Goddard, you mean?
I'm sorry, yeah, Goddard.
All
See?
right.
Yeah,
No,
Dallas
no, no.
Goddard.
I listen.
Yeah, you're talking tight ends. I'm going old school, but
No,
it
no,
is
no, no.
Dallas
You're good. You're
Goddard,
good. You're good. You're good. I don't mean to
65
correct you on the air.
receptions,
You know that the listeners will, but go ahead. Dallas Goddard.
83
Dallas Goddard.
targets, 682 yards, 4 touchdowns.
Huh.
And the key thing with him, obviously, Q, is the number of games played. He's had a lot of injuries. Last season, he played 10, 14 the year before, 12, and in 2021, he played 15. So he's not playing a full season because he's dealing with these injuries a lot. 65 in this offense. You talk about having to spread it around because,
Yeah.
you got Smith, you got Brown, you got Saquon. Ugh, I think he'll probably come in just under that number. I think this terms of 65 yardage, 682. I think he can do that. A lot of underneath stuff, moving the change types catches, and then 4 touchdowns obviously is not a lot. So I'd say yeah, he can hit that as well.
So he had just under, and by the way, de facto breaking my stones about McLaurin, right? That I bring him up every day. It's only because de facto will comment about my Washington and the contract situation. So it's like, how is that on me? This is another thing. Like, is it possible that Washington Commanders are in the Eagles fans' heads right now and it's only July 29th? I don't need you to agree on that, man. But Lloyd, am I onto something there? Because de facto, loyal listener constantly brings up Washington because he's in the DMV, but yet he's a diehard Eagles fan. So again, I'm getting the balls broke because I mispronounce or I butcher the name, but yet I bring them up every day. That's because I'm trying to, have a reply to your comments that have to do with Washington. So I will ask you, I feel as though the Eagles fans are getting nervous about Washington.
Well, they know they have some competition in NFC East, and they beat them once last year, and it was, they hung around for a little bit in the NFC Championship game. Obviously, Eagles broke that open with Saquon and his long runs, but yeah, it's going to be a fun rivalry to watch, because I really feel like they're the up and comers, and Dallas has gotten better, and obviously we've talked about the Giants situation a lot. But yeah, I definitely, it's heavy as the crown, Q. And we
It's
talked about
true.
a non-repeat division winner in over 20 years in the NFC East.
That's right. Goddard, by the way, played in 10 games. Remember, he was banged up, 47 receptions on 52 targets, 496 yards, 2 touchdowns. All right, we're kind of sticking with the offensive scheme. I will go up the turnpike, if you will. How about this one? So, I'm all for like these running backs when we start talking about the history. Brees Hall. I think Brees Hall has a very strong opportunity, a strong case, and strong chance to not only have 1,000 yards rushing, but also 1,000 yards receiving.
They just signed Wilson to that big contract, though, Q. And I think Aaron Glenn and his new offense coordinator, I definitely do think though that they are going to run the football. They're going to try to establish
Tanner ain't
that run.
Strand.
Yeah, and they're going to try to establish the run, and then that defense that has all those big names with the Williams and Sauce Gardner. I think they're going to try to lean on them. So I could definitely see him getting the threshold in terms of 1,000 yards. Maybe 1,300 yards. Now he shares a load sometimes with some of those other backs there, but yeah. But I don't know about 1,000 yards receiving. It's just a lot of mouths to feed on that offense.
He had so last year he caught 57 balls for close to 500 yards, right? And he rushed for just under 1,000. So if you look at the betting market. We mentioned it's a new offensive coordinator. He's never rushed for 1,000 yards in his career, but I think he's a very good back. So the betting market start to kind of take a hold of these player props and long shot futures, right? So if you check out RotoWire, his prop total is set for rushing at 925 and a half yards across a bunch of sports books, DraftKings, FanDuel. Now, I don't think they're going to be a good team, but I'll tell you this, if he does that, he would be in the MVP conversation, and his MVP odds stand at plus 30,000. So that tells me sports books have acknowledged that he's going to be a featured role in the offense. Now, the low probability, obviously, MVP level kind of candidate and campaign. I think it's going to be really, really interesting when he's right around 750 rushing, maybe 820 rushing, 750 receiving by, say, week 13, because he's going to be right there. Now, I will ask you, Mr. NFL historian, how many players have rushed for 1,000 yards and had over 1,000 yards receiving in the same season?
Well, let's see. Roger Craig, LaDainian Tomlinson, Marshall Falk, Christian McCaffrey. I'm probably missing one.
No, no, no. So you are three correct, but I don't think Tomlinson ever had 1,000 yards receiving and rushing in his career.
Oh,
I think it's,
he probably came pretty close and
yeah,
probably the end of
three
the season.
players:
Okay.
Roger Craig in '85, Marshall Falk, and uh, McCafferty. Over under 1.5 starting QBs for the Browns this year, says Vince.
Well, you already saw. It's funny. I was reading up, and you said I was like, oh, Shador's going to be the starter, and then I
Yeah.
was backed off it. Well, now you have Pickett pulling that hamstring, and he's kind of iffy in terms of his reps, and the younger guys get more reps.
Well, now
Yeah,
Vince is saying 2.5. Be fair.
I say maybe two. I go. I'll
All
go
right.
two. I'll say, definitely Flacco is ready in the bullpen. They've already kind of moved him forward, and he's going to get his reps. And then Pickett, when he comes back, maybe I'll give him a chance to start. And you got to factor in Deshaun Watson. But I think those two rookies, it's going to take a lot for them to get some playing time. No, you're muted, Q. I can't hear you.
Now, can you hear me?
There we go.
I apologize. What do you think they're going to do with Watson?
Yeah, Watson. I with that Achilles and having to go into surgery for a second time in a row on it, I think he's gonna. You probably won't see him at least until November, December, and then they'll probably have him on IR and then say, you know what, paying him $46 million guaranteed, unless he's fully healthy, you're probably not going to see him. I just believe they're just going to finally bite the bullet, admit they made a mistake, and just kind of sit him, which is just crazy when you're talking about $46 million
Right.
guaranteed. But that's Jimmy Haslam's money. He gave him that contract, and um, it's just an ugly situation. As we talked about last week, the Browns just have no plan, no rhyme or reason, and we'll see if Barry's able to weather the storm at GM position, Stefanski as well. But you may see a tear down coming real soon there.
I don't know what's worse, the Browns quarterback situation or my butchering of names. Who's McCaffrey? Christian McCaffrey. And the Death Star Mike strikes again. Correct. The Death Star Mike has had enough of the mispronunciations.
Hey, I can always say, Q, at least they're listening and
Yeah,
watching.
hey,
That's
I mean, listen, breakaway, that's not a problem. The rebels have defeated the Death Star. I don't know. I don't know what I touched. The Death Star Mike stays. It stays. You got another player too?
yeah. This guy, he got traded, new situation for him. DK Metcalf, he's coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They
Ooh.
want him to be the featured guy. Last season, kind of down season for him with Seattle. Played in 15 games, had 66 receptions, only 992,
Hmm.
5 TDs. So his
Interesting.
projections are saying, all right, he's going to Pittsburgh. He's going to be the guy. Um, they're going to air the football out with Aaron Rodgers to him. He has 82 projections or 82 receptions,
Okay.
1179 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns. So I would think with the volume and Rodgers, the amount he throws, I think he can achieve most of those deliverables. He's going to get a lot of targets. So I think he'll get to that 82 receptions and 1179. He can break some deeper ones. He should be able to achieve that now. As I was saying earlier, a lot of these receivers, it the touchdowns. You know what I mean? The touchdowns may be
Tough.
the thing. He has 7 TDs. They're probably going to be a rushing attack first with Warren and the other running back. And then they don't forget the 2 tight end sets they're going to have now with Fryermuth and
That's
John Smith. So I'll say he gets the receptions and the yardage, but not the TDs.
I think he might hit all of them. You know why? He's got no competition. Like seriously.
Yeah.
Like who they sticking on the outside?
Yeah. They're
On the
talking about
opposite end.
Roman Wilson and, there's just not a lot there. So it's a situation where, yeah, he's going to get his opportunities. And, he can be a bit of a malcontent. He's not getting the football. So I think he's going to keep him happy and placate him. I think they will get the ball to him.
Let me see. Franchise chimes in. Well, we know he's a Ravens fan, but he asked this Colts question.
Huh.
Q and Lloyd always enjoy you guys on the air together. Do you think the fact that the Colts just inked that big time tackle proves that they're going to go with Daniel Jones going forward? I mean, does one have anything to do with the other? Talking about the Raymond contract, 4 years, 100 million.
Well, they decided they're going to build up front, and then the wild card is Carly Ursay taking over the team from her father, Jim Ursay, who passed away. So it's a situation where, you know, is she going to say, okay, we give Richardson one more season, one more opportunity because it, they put all their eggs in his basket before. I think Steichen will do that. I think he's tied at the hip to Richardson. I know that shoulder's kind of iffy, but they're going to have open competition. I think he will be the week one starter, but Jones should be ready in the bullpen. But it's something that's going to have to be monitored. And you're talking about another team with a lot of talent. They've stockpiled on offense. Talk about that offensive line. It's has two cornerstone guys, and then you have Pittman. and then you have Taylor at the running back position. They also brought in Warren at the tight end. So, a lot there. The high expectations, and as always, that division is just so weak. If they pull something together, they could win it.
Bobby D chimes in from South Philly, says, realistically, what do you think the numbers are for Saquon? Can he top 2,000 again? I, I, I mean, look, me personally, that offensive line is one of the best in football. Um, I mean, man, he does that again, and I mean, if he starts stringing together a couple 1,800-yard seasons and then another 2,000 season, I mean, this kid's going in the friggin' Hall of Fame. And again, it's just going to stick in my you know what. Can you see him breaking 2,000 again?
No, I don't. We've seen a drop off. Every back that's ever gotten 2,000, there's a drop off the next season. Now, it may not be a huge one. I still think he's going to get over 1,700 yards, and he's going to get his touches. Now, like we were saying with Goddard earlier, it's going to be health is a big factor. Last season with the Eagles, he played his first full season. I know he was held out at the end, but he could have played in those games. But as long as he's healthy, yeah, I think he can get over 1,700 yards. The Eagles' offense obviously is built around him. They like that read option with him, and a big thing is let's see how the Eagles do replacing Becton, because they were going behind that right side a lot with Becton and Lane Johnson. But yeah, I think he's going to have a good season, but 2,000 is a lot to ask for.
And can we also be fair? He's not, aside from his rookie season, which was unreal. The Giants' offensive line is horrible. He wasn't running for those types of numbers behind that giant offensive line. I mean, it just kind of takes little peaks and valleys here and there. He was in a bad offense in New York, and he's in a great offense with the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, now you're starting to see, it's like, all right, you're playing pickup games and you're dominating guys, right? Now all of a sudden you're playing pickup games, and now the level of competition steps up, and now you're still dominating. It's like, it's because the talent around you is that much more better. He didn't have that with the Giants. He just didn't. Man says, I think it has more to do with 400 plus touches. Jamal Lewis, Chris Johnson, 2K, huge yards, back-to-back seasons. Jamal Lewis skipped a season between this monster year. Can't remember. You're right. I mean, I don't believe they're going to give him as many carries, because we already know what he can do behind that line. 1,700 yards is still a hell of a season, 12, 13, 14, 15 touchdowns on the ground. But they know he's bread and butter come what? Come late December, come playoff time. You ride him into the playoffs. So I think you're also going to be a little judicious with how many carries you give him week
Right.
15, 16, 17. If, say, they have everything locked up again, home field, or
Sure.
I should say, a top seed.
And they're counting a lot on A.J. Dillon coming over from the Packers. He did have this stinger neck injury that he was working through, but they're hoping that he can do a lot of the short yardage situations. And a big thing with Saquon, there were huge holes for him. You know what I mean? That offensive line was just dominant. He was yards at, before contact was best in the NFL. So you got to watch that. A lot of people are scheming against them. These defensive coordinators have spent all off season looking at the Eagles, what they did in the Super Bowl all through their season, and they're in a hundred. So I think, yes, he's going to have a good season. Hopefully they gave him some more money. Hopefully he lives up to that and stays healthy, and we can talk about him, can he sit out at the end of the season and kind of get some rest? But yeah, I think 1,700 is a good number for him.
I'll tell you this, every time a back is going for 330, 340, 350, the next year they're hurt, man. Jamal Lewis carried the ball 387 times in 2003. He went over 2,000 yards. The next season, he played 12 games and had 235 touches for 1,000 yards. I mean, his production was chopped in half. Same thing with the touchdown. So he goes from AP, MVP, Offensive Player of the Year. Here we go. I mean, it's like they run these backs into the friggin' ground, and then we expect them to have the same type of production the next season. Absolutely not. And oh, by the way, Jamal Lewis was 24 when he carried the ball 387 times.
Yeah. Yeah, and prime example is Christian McCaffrey. I mean, he carries the Niners to the Super Bowl, and then last season was just he was nicked up all season, one thing after the other, and it's just such a physical position. Picking up the blitz, catching the ball out of the backfield that they have to do, and then obviously their carries. Yeah, it's just like okay, great season, everything came together, but it's just a snapshot in time, I would say. But yeah, we'll see how it works out.
Does the season Saquon had, does it kind of give hope now for the running backs though going forward?
Yeah,
Where
yeah, Q.
yeah,
Yeah, I think I did the. I was compiling numbers. I think there was 13 backs that had over 1,000 yards. I know that's not what it used to be, but it was way higher than the season before. And you did see the running backs get a jump again with the way that Derek was running down for the Baltimore
yeah.
Ravens and what Saquon was doing. Teams are building it again around a running back, which everybody thought, oh, they don't want to pay him. They're not using him as much. They're splitting carries. They're looking, between three guys. But yeah, I think the running back position definitely had to jump last season.
All right, my friend. I always appreciate you. We will do it again on Thursday. How was the show last night?
We actually took the night off. Had a little scheduling issue, but
Uh
yeah,
oh.
we'll be back next
I
week.
put you on a bad spot. My fault. I'm sorry. I'm
That's
sorry.
not a problem, but yeah, we decided not to skip a week, but we'll be back next week. I think we're gonna do an NFC West preview, go over that, and then kind of do what you're talking about. Just talk about projecting. What guys are going to do. I think a big thing is we have camp news to talk about, and we'll have the big Hall of Fame game to kind of recap.
Yep.
I know there's probably not going to be much going on, but
Six,
something to talk about.
16 backs had over 1,000 yards. By the way, that if you are curious, the Lions are laying 2.5 in that game on Thursday night. Just saying.
Take the under. I think it's 32.5.
32.5. Excellent job. There you go. My guy, Lloyd Vance, at Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us every Tuesday and Thursday in his spot, 505. During the season, we do Vance's View. We'll continue to look at some of these projections and player props as well. Before we know it, the season is right around the corner. But as always, we appreciate a couple of moments with my guy. Lloyd, always appreciate you, pal. Thank you.
All right, Q.
All right, there you have it. Lloyd Vance, excellent stuff. Quick timeout. We'll reset the table. We got some comments coming in. We will go through them as well. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
Hidden in an abandoned campground in South Jersey lies a mystical encounter with brews and spirits, where bonfires burn, shadows dance, and flavor favors the bold. Ghosts, ghouls, goblins, grown-ups, it's time to reclaim Halloween. This is Witchcraft, October 10th and 11th. For tickets and information, visit witchcraftnj.com.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pascoe. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609 484 9800.
All right, a couple minutes before we get out of here. What do we got? We already went through Nick, already went franchise. Matt Glasgow chimes in. Q, I actually think it's realistic Saquon gets on the cusp of 2,000, but as you mentioned, if they got everything locked up, they might sit him the last couple weeks of the season. I mean, we are projecting, right? We are looking ahead. I mean, it is amazing because he was injury prone with the Giants behind a horrible offensive line and just, had some bad luck, right? It happens. And then you stick him on that offensive line and he's just, he's on his way to being a Hall of Fame running back, right? Kevin chimes in again. Q, what do you think realistically the running back split's going to be with the Giants? So you're talking Tracy, right? Then you've still got Singletary is still on the roster, and then Scatterboo. So I think you're going to have that running back by committee. I like Tyron Tracy. Some people don't. The kid averaged 4.4 yards. Listen, the Giants have some offensive weapons, and you've got a veteran in Russell Wilson. I don't know what Russell Wilson is going to give them. I don't. But I can tell you this. In 6 years that Daniel Jones was a starting quarterback for the Giants, his best season, Daniel Jones threw for over 3,000 yards twice. And one time it was for 3,027 yards, which was his rookie season. He threw 24 touchdowns his rookie season. He never even came remotely close to duplicating that. So is Russell Wilson an upgrade over Daniel Jones? Yeah, I would say Jameis Winston is an upgrade over Daniel Jones. But they're going to roll out Russell Wilson first and foremost. They are. Now, I will also say this. Daniel Jones, a change of scenery can really do wonders for players, especially quarterbacks that people were going to write off. You heard Lloyd talk a little bit about that Colts offense with Taylor. They've got some good wide receivers in Pierce, Pittman Jr., Downs, Mitchell. They've got some players, right? Look at Daniel Jones. If you're talking about quarterbacks that were jettisoned and discarded and pretty much left for dead, well, did we not look at Sam Darnold? And then Sam Darnold has that great comeback year, that comeback player of the year. I'll say this. That job is right there for Daniel Jones. And I know, again, they've had their moments, and Daniel Jones has to understand right now, if Anthony Richardson, if they're not sold on Anthony Richardson, and I'm a veteran guy who's been around the block and he started 60-something games, won a road playoff game, if I'm Daniel Jones, I need to grab that job away from Anthony Richardson. And by all accounts, he's still struggling a little bit, Daniel Jones. Like him and Anthony Richardson are having some bad showings. Like if Daniel Jones is going to try to save his career, he has to basically just blow away the competition. He's got to make it so easy for the coaching staff to say he's going to be the starter. He's head and shoulders above Anthony Richardson. And if you got two guys falling flat in a quarterback battle, then it makes the coach's job actually a little more difficult because you don't know who to go with, but it also gives them a little out. Well, we can go to this guy, and if it doesn't work out, we can go to the other guy. If you're Daniel Jones, man, you need to just assert yourself and wrestle that job away. You have to. You have to. And maybe now, if Richardson's starting to get some reps, he realizes, for the first time in my career, somebody's starting to push me a little bit. But I bring up Daniel Jones because let's just say Daniel Jones gets, Daniel Jones wins the starting position. To me, I would say very small little flyer on Daniel Jones to be comeback player of the year. Because if he wrestles that job away and plays well the first 4, 5, 6 games of the season, he's going to be the starter for the entire season. Let's just say they beat Miami. They lose to Denver. They beat Tennessee. They lose to the Rams. They beat the Raiders in Arizona, and they're a 4-2 team, a 3-3 team after 6. and he's playing well, they're not going to bench him. They're not. Then you got winnable games against Pittsburgh, Tennessee, and Atlanta. I mean, they might win 5 or 6 games prior to the bye, which is week 10. 6-3, 6-4, and Daniel Jones is playing well, and he's throwing for 280, a couple touchdowns here and there. Then he's right on course for comeback player of the year. But if you're Daniel Jones, you got an opportunity to salvage your career. You have an opportunity to resurrect your career. There's no way I'm letting Anthony Richardson beat me out in camp. I'm just not. Franchise chimes in again. Q, go back over Jamal Lewis's numbers the first 4 to 5 years of his career. Was he a Hall of Fame back? I mean, he rushed for over 1,000, right? He got hurt in 2001. I think he rushed for 1,200 as a rookie. Here, franchise, I'll appease you. All right, here we go. Jamal Lewis, 1364, had a knee injury, didn't play 2001. 1327, 2,000 yards, 1,000 yards, 900, 1,000, 1,300, 1,000, 500. He rushed for over 10,000 yards in his career. And he was also Associated Press Player of the Year, MVP, and Offensive Player of the Year with the 2,000 yards. Typically, that's going to garner you those awards. Look, if Jamal Lewis played in 2001 and had a couple of, you throw in another 1,000, 2,000 yards, a 12,000 yard back, if he had maybe 80 rushing touchdowns, I would probably say, okay, give him a look for the Hall of Fame. But you're going by 3 or 4 years, and you're trying to make a case off a 2,000 yard season. I can't do that. I can't do that. It's different with Davis, right? We talked about this. It's really different with Terrell Davis. Terrell Davis also cut his teeth, made his bones in the playoffs. We've said it so many times. Davis had that burst, that stretch the first 4 years of his career. But other than that, I mean, he did nothing the last 3 years, and he was always injured. That's why it's still perplexing to me that we look at Terrell Davis as a Hall of Fame player. I mean, Terrell Davis, he won an MVP when he went over 2,000 yards, and then he was top 5 2 seasons prior to that. I look at Davis, I don't see Hall of Fame back. I see a very, very good back, at times a great back. If you're throwing in his postseason of 1,100 yards, that still doesn't get him over 10,000 for his career. But, you get the rings and 2 to 3 year stretch. It's very, very subjective. It really is. So to kind of answer your question, Davis was a good running back. I'm sorry, Lewis was a very good running back. But these guys get broken down, man. These guys break down so fast. When you really look at like an all-purpose kind of back, right? We're talking about yards from scrimmage. Even a guy like Westbrook, who was more of a all-purpose punt returner early in his career. Westbrook retired when he was just 31. Brian Westbrook, I always thought he used to bail McNabb out so many times. It was ridiculous how many times he bailed out Donovan McNabb. He was a very good player. Now, I'm not going to sit there and say Hall of Fame consideration, but I'm going to say for the type of back he was, what he brought to the table, he was really, really, really good because he also caught the ball out of the backfield. He was almost like a Terry Metcalf, before Terry Metcalf, right? I mean, here's a guy that was Eric Metcalf too, a guy that can return punts, kickoffs, a little scat back, catch the ball out of backfield, really good player. But some of these backs have a burst, a great season or two. Hell, Willie Parker ran for 1,500 yards. You never heard of him again. He played in the NFL for 4 or 5 years. I'm not going to stick him in the Hall of Fame. I would probably look at a guy like Ricky Waters. Ricky Waters, if you just go by the numbers, Ricky Waters is he's a Hall of Fame back. I mean, he is. He's a Hall of Fame back. He's got close to 15,000 scrimmage yards. He has over 10,000 rushing yards. And he has close to what? His receiving yards. He's got almost 4,400 receiving yards. Like, I would say Waters, to me, for all purpose yards, he's a Hall of Fame running back. I would actually put him in the Hall of Fame over a guy like Terrell Davis. Roger Craig. You know, how many times did we talk about Roger Craig on the air? No, Roger Craig was doing stuff that guys, before him never